Hey, what's going on, guys? Hey, before we dive into this episode of the Ripple Effect podcast, I wanted to make you aware that we have just opened early access to the Ripple membership, which is launching September 1. You are going to want to check this out. Go to ripplecentral.com, look for the banner at the top of the page, or go to the gather option, and you'll find all the information that you need to learn about this exciting program. It is an amazing 12-month experience that you are going to want to be a part of because Ripplers are going to get so much great content, so much great information, not just from me, but from some leading experts out there that are really going to help you bring and raise your game as it relates to building your own self awareness, building your own self confidence, building the kinds of relationships and connections and the network that you want. I'm super excited about this program. One of the themes that we'll be covering in the program is changing your paradigm. And this episode couldn't come at a better time because Krisstina Weiss actually is a paradigm shifter for a lot of people. She helps them take a inventory of what they're doing personally and professionally and really taking a deep dive to understand and appreciate the need for change, especially as it comes to the relationship with money. So I'm super excited. This is a perfect example of the great, amazing content that we're going to have available throughout the Ripple membership. So I encourage you to pop on over to ripplecentral.com, look at the top banner, or go to the gather option under the menus, and you will learn all that you need to learn, and you'll want to sign up because we got some great stuff happening throughout the summer for our founding members. Not only do you get a special discount for becoming a founding member, and that discount lasts for lifetime. How about that? That's a positive ripple. But there's going to be some goodies that we're going to do throughout the summer that you're not going to want to miss. So be sure to pop over to ripplecentral.com and get signed up today. That sounded a little used car salesman ish, but how about today? Sign up today. Hey guys, I'm super excited for you to meet Krisstina Weiss. Krisstina and I go way back. She is one of those entrepreneurs that has just absolutely inspired me. She is a real estate mogul, a millionaire coach, and creator of several multi-million dollar businesses, including Good Life Luxury, The Paperless Agent, and most recently, Wealthy Wealthy. I'm excited for you to learn about this. She's also an international speaker and an award-winning author of the Amazon bestseller Falling for Money, a romance novel for your bank account. She is a dynamo, to say the least, and I'm super excited to have her here for the Ripple Effect podcast. So let's get started. You're a pro. I'm actually nervous because I mean you're so great at your podcast. I have like
Oh, you're so silly.
I just want to do halfway as good, right?
You're the best. I learned from you. You wrote the first book and started
Ah,
all this stuff, and so I had to follow in your footsteps. You were an
oh,
inspiration to me.
yeah, you're very kind, but no, I think you are a trendsetter. You didn't follow in anybody's footsteps. You're just awesome.
Well, let's do this. I'm
All right,
excited.
let's go.
Okay.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Ripple Effect podcast. I am super excited to introduce you to my good friend Krisstina Weiss. Krisstina and I have known each other for a number of years, and she is an unbelievable entrepreneur. And just super thrilled to have you, Krisstina. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm so good. I'm happy to be here, living the life.
Yeah, well, you are a world traveler, and so finding some time to be able to squeeze into your schedule has been was fun, and it was just great to see all the things that you've got going on. And I know before we hit record, you were saying, "Hey, look, I'm right now trying to live the life where I'm kind of enjoying more than I'm working," and I love that because I've seen this transformation of you all these years as an entrepreneur that you're blazing your own trails, you're doing your own thing. And I love that because you're kind of living the dream that all entrepreneurs, I think, really want to live when they get into entrepreneurship. So I'm excited to dig into the current story and kind of what you're doing and focused on for your business. But more importantly, I'd just like to give my audience a little bit of a perspective about who you are as an individual, because I think you have such a fascinating journey. But I'm a big believer in origin stories. So how did Krisstina Weiss become Krisstina Weiss? I mean, we're interested. So
Well, the
let's
funny
start
story
there.
I think like all of us, I've had so many versions, and so I call it kind of V1, V2. I think I'm on like V5 now, I like this V so
I
far.
love it. Yep, I love it. I love it.
And when I was big into my big business and company, what a big thing that I taught then to my team was iteration. And versus trying to get it perfect and delay, it's like, no, we're going to be very imperfect,
Yep.
and we're going to release whatever this is, and we're going to learn from what's working and not working and really adjust accordingly. And it worked really well for me in this kind of iterative mindset. So when I look at my life, I'm realizing like, oh, that's a bunch of iterations as well. You learn from the last iteration, and then you're into
Yep.
the improvement or the upgrade, if you will.
Absolutely. Well, so when you look at some of those earlier iterations, I mean, how did you decide that you wanted to become an entrepreneur in the first place, right? Because I know you had a heavy presence in real estate. You've always one of the things I went back to look at my notes from the first time you and I met. We had lunch, and I picked up so many nuggets from you about you've got to take control and you've got to live your dream because at that phase of your career you were like, hey, I've done several things where I felt like I was contributing and adding value to other people's businesses, but I wasn't adding value to myself, and wanted to be in more control and be the driver of your own destiny. And it always stood out to me because you were just so committed to. I know my path now. I know what I want to do. I know where I want to go. But give us a little sense of how you got into business initially, and then sort of how you made that determination to be like, hey, look, screw this. I'm taking it. I'm going to go do my own thing.
I wonder. I mean, I love the question, and I'm always one that kind of asks a question with the question, but I wonder for many of us, is it just like it's just wired into us? I mean,
Yep.
I have had one job my entire life, like a W-2. And I went to college, got 2 degrees in accounting and finance. And I did that because one, I like numbers, but two, I just thought that would be a good career path and good money, kind of the normal linear things. And so I studied all this. I got an accounting and finance degrees and did it in a very short period of time, relatively speaking. And then I get a job with a big six accounting firm right out of college. And I mean, it was a dream job. Nobody was getting jobs back then. I got
Yeah.
paid more than anybody else. I mean, to be a big six straight out of college was a huge deal. But then it was, the big eight. But anyway, and I graduated. I took, I don't know, a week off, and I went straight to work that summer. And I worked for 3 months there, and I hated it.
Yep.
Hated it. And I mean, I worked hard. I mean, I worked long hours, all the things. I'm a good worker. I mean,
Yep.
anybody that knows me,
Oh
like,
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
not about not willing to put in the hours, but I just thought, what the hell did I do? I went to all that school and did all of that and spent all the time in the library and missed all the really good frat parties for
Yeah.
this. Are you
Yeah.
kidding me?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just realized I couldn't work in that, whatever that was, and I couldn't explain it. And even just for 3 months, so I just felt like I didn't belong there, and I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I didn't even know what the word entrepreneur meant. I
Yep.
mean, that I found out what that meant later on. But what I realized is that no matter, I mean, I put myself through school, no matter what, I could just make things happen, and I could make money, and whatever I decided to do, I was going to do it. And the money just came, and the opportunities came. And so I don't know, but just coming out of that. And then even when I started in real estate and worked with a big company, even though I was an independent contractor and had a lot of flexibility and was really kind of my own boss, so to speak.
Yeah.
Still
Yeah.
working under that umbrella, I had so many limitations and constraints that I couldn't fully do 100% of what I wanted to do because I was in the container of somebody else's business.
Yeah.
I ran my business the best that I could, but again, it was limited by kind of those other rules or whatever that was.
Yeah.
Again, even in that, like once I grew inside that container until I hit those boundaries, walls, and ceilings in that box and realized I can't stay here. I've got to go on to the next piece. And so broke that and started my next thing. So I don't know, to answer your question, it's just a wiring inside me of like, I really have to be, and it's not just business, but it's personal. I really have to be fully Krisstina with unconstrained, and if I,
Yep.
in whatever mistakes I make by not following the rules or doing something, at least I'm deciding that and I'm living by the consequences of those versus somebody else telling me I
I
can't
love
do
that.
it. So I
Yeah.
don't know. Again, but I think when my parents said I was, barely walking, I was very headstrong, and I wasn't going to do what anybody told me to do.
You're always going against the grain. So you're
Yeah,
always making your own path, forging your own direction in life, right?
yeah, but it's not out of somebody. I was interviewed on a podcast recently, and it's not. like I set out to break the rules, but it's one of those things that if the rules don't make sense, I'm going to question them
Yep.
and test them for my own sake. And I think, again, that's a very natural entrepreneurial thing, as well as we as entrepreneurs, we're really driven by futures and visions and like
Yep.
some like real passionate, desirous vision of the world can be better, and not the world globally necessarily. It can be, they're big, global entrepreneurs, but just it can be our small environments or whatever we're in. So when I was in the real estate industry, I was just driven and passionate about making the industry better. Like I
Yeah.
wanted it better. I wanted to challenge all the status quo. And I knew there was so much opportunity for expansion, but it was just so like, this is the way it's always been. And with the business that I do now, again, like how do we change this? How do we make it better? How do we make people's lives better? How do we make entrepreneurs' lives better in kind of the context of money and financial wealth? And, you know, what's being said out there that's true, but what are other things that's kind of very limiting and maybe not true? So again, I just think as entrepreneurs, it's this passionate desire to want to like break things or stretch the limits or see what else is possible.
Absolutely. Well, I remember when I first met you and we were talking about your business model and how it was so vastly different from how most agency relationships were, right? You were very committed to not only helping the clients that you serve, but you also had a responsibility that really impressed me in that you looked at it as a responsibility to serve the agents that were representing your brand. And you had a different approach. You had a different model than the traditional agency focus, and you were doing things that really got you a lot of attention. I remember when we were having that first lunch, you were talking about all these different opportunities that were flowing to you because of it. You were getting an opportunity to speak and do some consulting in other agent relationships because the old model was really due for an overhaul, and you were sort of the trendsetter, right? In terms of, hey, look, not only do you have to embrace technology, you have to look for other ways to add value. And I think where you and I really sort of geeked out was that relationship that you were creating, not only with your clients, but with the people that worked with you, because they were extensions of your brand. And if you did it right, that was creating the buzz and sort of this really unique approach was getting high visibility because of the great leadership style that you had, but also the commitment to the people, right? The end result. And I just remember walking away just being like, wow, I'm just like super impressed with all that you were doing because you got it right. I work with a lot of business owners, a lot of business leaders that they speak a good game about relationships, but very few were putting their money where their mouth was. And you were definitely doing it. You were making investments not only in training and the approach that you would take in terms of how you did your commission split and the approach that you did with kind of the salary arrangement, which was very unusual at the time. But then you were coming out and going, hey, look, I'm not holding this playbook back. I'm going to share it, right? I'm going to share it freely and add value. And I remember just how many opportunities were kind of flowing to you because you were out there creating so many positive ripples with this new approach.
Yeah, and I remember with your, when you and I first met, and your book, The Ripple Effect, and it was just so right on. And when I really kind of distill down, and filter out what some of the key things that have been part of my success, and all the hoopla, it's really been relationships and just putting that love piece into everything. And
Yep.
it's kind of funny that as an entrepreneur, like I talk about love the most is first we have to really love ourselves and love our vision, and that's where that natural passion and desire comes from. Is
Yeah.
it comes out of love. It's love of creating futures, it's love
Yeah.
of making change, it's love of breaking boundaries. So, and that's a feeling. And when we don't have that feeling, then it just becomes work or it becomes these different things.
Yep.
But then it's the love of people and like building those cultures and building people and letting people know that they're cared about, from a team member to a client. And I
Yep.
think that was the different piece is we were building everything so that whoever connected with our brand felt good about themselves.
Yeah.
And so that became the what we're trying to do that wasn't really present in the industry. And the other thing, kind of early tech days when things were taking off, I was so fascinated by open source, because
Yeah.
prior to that everything was very competitive and secret and private. And then I got to see and witness like how fast things moved with open source by everything, everybody building on and everybody getting to win out of that model. So I thought, okay, how can we like open source this in a way that is I'm figuring things out and we're proving that it works. Let's share it with the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I had nothing that I wanted in return, but I just started sharing and speaking, and this is working and that didn't work. And oh my God, I never even thought that this thing would work as well as it did, or don't do that because that was a total bust and I lost a lot of money. And just with nothing, no agenda other than as we're doing it, why not share it with the world? And the byproduct, the unintended, unexpected kind of ripple back, if you
Yeah.
will, was that people like, oh my God, thank you. And then that just really blew up the brand. And it really taught me, that less about competition and more about collaboration and how fast and how powerful we can build by joining. And my business today is very collaborative. That kind of the same thing is that I'm always looking for relationships to build my business
Yep.
versus kind of more traditional ad dollars and different things that work too. But as far as really building the brand and building the business and generating the leads, it's all through relationship. And so there's a relationship piece that's been successful. That's, you and I have known each other for 20 years probably,
Yeah.
and we're still
Yeah.
here talking and these things
Yeah.
last, which is awesome, even if we don't talk to each other for a while. But there's just the success through collaboration and relationship, but there's also the fun.
Yeah.
Meaning it's just so much more rewarding when you get to win, but you also see somebody else winning at the same time. And
Exactly.
my favorite thing, like if I write checks out of my business toward for Facebook ads, I'm actually pissed off. I'm like, God bless, really? And then, there's no joy in writing a check to
Sure.
Facebook.
Sure.
Now, the affiliate checks I write out every single month, I am so excited to write those checks.
Yep.
And I mean, let's say it's the same amount of money going out towards kind of the same purpose to generate new business. One, I just detest it. The other one, I'm joyfully writing the checks, and to see that they got a big check in the mail and they're opening that check,
Yeah.
metaphorically speaking, and then they're going to want to do more because there's that big check. But my happiest day is actually writing checks out to affiliates.
That's
But
awesome.
again, it's this relationship win-win thing that, has just really worked for me.
Well, and that's the key, right? It's the return on relationship. You could write that check and goes to the abyss of Facebook, right? And
Mhm.
you don't see the direct impact, or you can put it towards people that have totally bought into and are big supporters of your work and are actually making it their own work and are passionate about it. And how life changing that is, right? So those checks are, that sort of that payoff for you as the ultimate entrepreneur to say, look, I'm really happy to be able to do this because it feels good that I'm not only being able to show that what I said and what I did and what these people have bought into is working. That's the biggest reward as an entrepreneur, is that whatever you're putting out there is being, is working, is being successful. But at the end of the day, people are making money and it's changing their lives, and it's so impactful. And that ripple comes back to you by just saying, hey, look, this is investments in those people that have come on board and believe in what I'm doing and are doing their part to change their own lives and their own stories.
Yeah, right on. And you nailed it. Is that, and for me personally, that just brings so much joy that even when I'm writing these affiliate checks, what I do with some of my best partners, affiliate partners, I'm like, don't put this affiliate check into your business. I want this to go in your health wealth bucket, your
Yep.
spoil bucket. So that, if I'm writing you a $20,000 check, go take a vacation with it. Like
Yep.
fund your other buckets, non-business buckets with this, and just do business as usual. So, and then they'll say, hey, look at me, I'm in Cabo, and courtesy of, Kristina's check type of thing. So
Yep.
it's really cool again to have that type of experience. But I mean, I'm the person that rarely shops on Amazon. I mean, to me, again, just I kind of my life motto is put my heart into as many things as possible, like be
Yep.
truly authentic there.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, Amazon doesn't care about my hard earned dollar. But I find that small business entrepreneurs are making great products, and you read their story. I mean, I go to the about on every, before I buy, I do research on products for my personal purchasing and business. but I read their story. And if I get into the story and I see what they've sacrificed, we all know as entrepreneurs, the blood, sweat, and tears, and
Yep.
they're successful and they want the product to be the best product and they've changed it somehow, and they have that same fire that we have.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, my actually with this small business, my dollars matter,
Yeah.
even if they never know who I am, which they probably won't. But so, the time people ask me all the time, like, what are your products that I use? And I need to create like a store or something because
Yeah.
I've so hand selected
Yeah.
all of these products. And so much of it's based on what we're talking about is they're breaking, they're outside of the kind of the big corporate veil. And they really are doing this out of their own love and passion of wanting to make, their product better.
Well, and that actually I think is one of the things that we as entrepreneurs can really only appreciate, right? If you haven't been there and been through those tough times as an entrepreneur, you can't really truly appreciate everybody else's difficult times and in the struggle that it takes to get a product or a service off the ground. And so when you can support them through your own, your own efforts, even just writing that check, buying their product or service, or promoting it, saying, "Hey, look, don't take my word for it. Go try it, right? Or go get, go pick this up." It really does feel good because you are actually creating some dynamics for that business. And like you said, good ripplers, I talk about this all the time on the show, is like, you don't do it because you're going to get some sort of payback, right? Or some sort of, recognition for it. You do it because it's the right thing to do. And you know that how difficult those times can be and those challenges that you're facing as an entrepreneur and how much guts and grit it takes to be successful at anything. And so anytime we as entrepreneurs get an opportunity to support another entrepreneur, we're all over it.
Yeah, right on. And just to, so much of my life now is really about consciousness. It's being conscious of, my thoughts, being conscious of my behaviors, and really just kind of the spiritual part of this journey is really just working to be as most aligned with that as possible.
Yeah.
Where my money meets my mouth, and I teach money now in
Oh,
the sense that money can be a mirror. So if we look at money as a mirror, and let's say I tout that I'm, all about health and wellness. But
yep.
if I go to look at where my money's being spent and it's, being spent on, I don't know, McDonald's is maybe a bad example, but or lots of bars and eating out and all the things, but it's not reflected on maybe, some organic grocery stores
Yeah.
and all the things. Like our money will show us like, oh, I'm saying I care about these things. Like I'm touting it over here, but my behavior, if I look at my money's telling another story. So I call that money and meaning, where when is really to have the joy of spending. So I'm the one that tells people, like, even though I teach money and wealth creation, I teach people like spend 100% of what you make. It's just where and how you spend it matters. But
Yeah.
when you're aligned with the money that you spend is meaningful and connected with something that brings you like real joy, like lasting joy beyond just the short term, kind of dopamine hit of a new Amazon box showing up in the mail. But when that's connected to that, so same thing when we're connected to my dollar is supporting this maybe entrepreneur, and in return, I'm getting a superior product, or, and I'm feeling good about that. But again, these choices, but they take more time to be selective and conscious. And, but we're such in the rat race, especially like where I like to work with entrepreneurs is, we've been taught this hustle mentality, like more is
Yeah.
better,
Yeah.
hustle, 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 go, 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 grit, grit, grit. And someday, somewhere out there, there's going to be this great big grand payoff. And
Yeah.
so we shortchange, and many times we're living out of alignment and integrity, just trying to hit the number, hit that success, whatever we're trying to hit. And we're really missing life. We're missing the meaning of this. We're
Yeah.
disconnected from really the purpose is that, yeah, as entrepreneurs, I think we're motivated by making change and making things better and helping people and transformation and making impact and all of that. But it's to remember also that business isn't about business. Business is like when we separate ourselves from the business and look at it as an organization and structure, and when we're step outside of it, we can look at this as a system that we've built and created for the sake, the byproduct of doing that really well is we
Yeah.
get to collect this thing called profit. And through that profit, it's the business profit that underwrites the cost of living a good life personally.
Yep.
So many times we're sacrificing all of our personal life for the sake of this thing called business, and it's the wrong order.
Yeah.
Understand? No, we want to create a business in a way that creates enough money and freedom, or enough money really, that allows us to live our personal life really well. But what that requires, if we have to know what a good life is and how much it costs to
Yeah.
live it, so that
Yeah.
we're everything is connected and the business isn't over here and then sacrificing that. There's no sacrifice. It's all one holistic integrated system where the business is serving the personal, and we take our personal to, to interject that energy into the business. And when it's really in tandem and working like that, then it's that integration is where the juice is. And it wreaks a lot less havoc because, family members or the different things like, oh well, I feel left. I don't feel like I feel like we or the marriage or the kids or whatever is being sacrificed because, and then you're saying all these things, you're doing all this for the family. It's no, you're really not doing it for the family. You're doing it for you
Yeah.
because the family doesn't want the cost of doing it for the family if the person is always busy in one way or another. So it's again, when we can really, as entrepreneurs, be connected to, like, passionately connected to the joy of making change, while at the same time not sacrificing relationships for the sake of this beast thing, for
Yeah.
this thing that we think is about. We say it's not about the money, but ultimately it's about the money. It's very confusing.
It is. Yeah. Well, there's a lot to unpack there because, I think at the end of the day, there's this, you touched on the hustle culture, right? And you talk about, a lot of people get into the entrepreneurship because they watch and they follow some of these entrepreneurs that are out there. You got to be working 24/7. If you're not working on your business, you're not making it. You're not a legit entrepreneur. And there's, especially with the advent of social media, you see it and you feel like, oh my God, I'm not living up, right? And I think one of the things that you touched on is that before you go into business for yourself, or even if you are in business for yourself, but you're really trying to evaluate whether what you're doing right now is really what you should be doing. I do this a lot with my coaching clients is like, what were the motivations behind this? Right. And a lot of times you need to make sure that there's an alignment there, right? With, am I doing the type of business and I'm putting the type of work and energy towards, growing this thing for the right reasons. And a lot of times people don't get into it thinking, well, I just want to grow a successful business. I want to be able to, go to Mexico a couple of times a year. I want to be able to have, the trappings of a successful entrepreneur. And then you always have these social pressures that feel like make you feel like you're not accomplishing enough. And so to your point, like you stop, paying attention and focusing on your family and doing the things that are necessary that are really important for you to sustain that momentum as an entrepreneur. Those things fall by the wayside. And that could also manifest in not taking care of yourself, not, eating and exercising in a way that you should. And then before you know it, you're working on a business that you don't even love and don't even like. And you're like, crap. And now I can't get out of it because now I'm stuck and it's the hamster wheel. You would have been just as better staying in that job, like way that you talked about right out of college, right? Which is where a lot of people find themselves. And I think ultimately, at the end of the day, in the pressures of an entrepreneur, like to build bigger and better, that next phase, constantly chasing, what are you chasing for and where do you want to go and what do you want to do? And the thing I love about your teachings and what you do is that you're like, hey, look, whoa, let's trim this all the way back, right? Why are you doing what you're doing? And are you building this for a bigger purpose, or are you building it because your ego says you have to? And ego always is going to tell you you're doing it wrong, or you're not making enough money, or you're not nearly as successful as you should be. And I think at the end of the day, where you take it out of the mind and you put it back more towards a heart centric approach, and you really get people to think, okay, what are my motivations and what's my end game? And how can I turn this from being a obligation into an opportunity and create a system that allows me to build this business with, work on my business, not always in my business, and doing things smarter, with more focus, with the right players, with the right people, the right team, but most importantly, the right intention for me as an entrepreneur to figure out where I want it to go and what I want that end game to be.
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you how many, I mean, what my business is to help people get out of the grind and the hustle and off the hamster wheel,
Yep.
So when people reach that point, they can't figure out what they're doing wrong and how to get off of it. That's where I come in. They're like, this isn't working anymore. And when you're younger, it seems to work. When you're older, it's like this this is not, I don't think this is the way it's supposed to work out. But I
Right.
can't tell you in my work today how many entrepreneurs I work with who have been very successful. And the exact, you basically said this, the exact words they say to me are, I've built a business I hate.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did all the things right. I, and I built this, however many zero business, and I hate it and I can't get out.
I'm trapped. Yeah.
And I'm totally trapped. And I've created a financial situation for myself as well personally that I have to go punch the clock, my own clock every single day, because if I don't, the whole thing's going to fall apart. And there goes all my money that I need to, you know, live my
Yeah.
personal life. So that's, we many times we think, well, that's not me, that's not me. And so, but
It
it's
is you.
it's you, right?
Yeah.
And there, what's really crucial, and I learned this early on, not that I didn't make all the mistakes and had to, get my own lessons. I just had to prove that it was true versus believing it was be true. But everything needs to start with kind of in this money and business game. We just start business for whatever reason we start business. And then it just takes a life of its own, and we grind and we hustle and we grit and we do all the things and we sacrifice. And with really this belief that if I can get to the business to a certain place, financially and personally, life is going to be nirvana.
Yep.
And it's kind of that's the story that's running. And it's very disconnected, like we talked about. But before we even start our business, really, or to start the next phase, I believe what's the most important question to ask ourselves and to have an answer to is kind of twofold. One is, what is a good life? So Kristina's good life probably looks very different than Steve's good life. But if I ask people to really in detail describe your good life, very few people could just describe it.
Yeah.
They have some ideas. Well, maybe I'd have this, or maybe I'd have a house over there, or maybe I'd take some. No, like for your good life, if you could answer this, that if this is as good as it got, and it looked and felt just like this would be a damn good life. If it was
Yep.
more that type of thing, awesome. But if it were just this and it's the good enough, and when we don't have a good enough, we're always dissatisfied.
Yeah.
We can never arrive at a place of satisfaction and celebration and wow, I am so grateful. Like, look at this life I have.
Yeah.
So when you can know what that is, and then you experience that I'm in a good portion of this, it just again kind of the byproduct of that is this immense gratitude because I'm satisfied.
Yeah.
Versus we live it's a stage of constant dissatisfaction, never enough. More is better. I don't know. When I got here, I thought it'd feel different. So it must be like the next level of this or that.
Yeah.
But that comes out of not knowing what a good life is. And I can tell you when you know it and you're living it, life is so damn awesome.
Yes.
Even so much so that I know we had to reschedule like 3 times. And I live in a lot of flow right now.
Yeah.
And that's just it. It's like I had a Park City trip come up. It's like, Steve,
Yeah.
I've got a trip come up and I'm going to actually stay an extra week.
Yeah.
So, can we move it? And then last week, I'm like, I'm going to Santa Fe unexpectedly. So can we push it to next week? And you could have gotten pissed off and said no at some point, and that would be something I would need, if it, that would be something I'd have to live with if that happened. But ultimately, it's like, no, my life is what's most important, and the business supports the life.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to make this happen. It's going to be great. Hopefully, great business for both of us will come out of it. If not, maybe we'll, say some things that causes someone's day to be better.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, life first, business supports life. Then sometimes it's like, all right, now I need to go home and really focus on business because, I've got some numbers or some days to make up. But then it's fun.
Yeah.
But that's because, I'm really living by that good life model. So that's the first piece is what is a good life? And I teach the 7 F words and how to kind of use, a framework to sketch this out and to help. And then the journey, it's truly about the process and journey and not the destination. I mean, how many times have we heard that? But we're all destination. Like when we hit there, life's going to be perfect. We're missing
Yeah.
the juice and the joy is in the day to day, in the creation and bumping up against the challenges. It's the successes that come through that.
Yeah.
All the joy is in the moment to moment, day to day. It's not the destination. The destination is never as exciting as you thought it would be. I mean,
Well, and you hit on something really important there, right? Is we have this tendency, I think it's, almost human nature because it's been beat into us, is that we have this deferred gratitude. We're not living in the moment. We're not recognizing, especially from an entrepreneur's perspective, it's the battle can be daily, it could be hourly, right? And living and appreciating those opportunities in those moments when they happen, not, well, 5 years from now when I make, X millions of dollars, or I sell my company, or I do my roll up. People are so focused on what's next, they're failing to recognize what's right in front of them. And I think that's what I love about your philosophy and your approach, is that you really have this paradigm shift for an entrepreneur to really look at, okay, where are you right now, and what can you be taking out of this, what can you be enjoying. And for those that are like, hey, I feel like I'm stuck, I feel like I have no choice, I can't go any other way, right? I just know one speed. You really shift that perspective pretty dramatically for them, because you're actually saying, look, you continue to do that, you can go 90 to nothing, and the end game may not be what you think it is down the road, and look how much life you will have wasted trying to get there, if you ever get there.
yeah, if you ever get there, and that's the chase. We're always chasing, it's like a dog track, there's the dog's chasing the rabbit and it's just chasing. It's never going to catch the rabbit. The game is rigged.
Yeah.
But the dog can kill itself if it just keeps running and running, running, chasing the rabbit. So it's so that's what we're doing. We're chasing the rabbit on the circular track and we don't even realize it. And we
Yeah.
think we're going to catch the thing, and you're not going to catch it like that. And so, and my story too is, like I literally nearly killed myself
Yeah.
accidentally
Yeah.
by all the stuff that we're talking about. And I kid you not. I mean, it was it was horrible.
Yeah.
The fact that I can even kind of say it with a chuckle is pretty amazing. But I wouldn't wish what I went through on my worst enemy. I mean, it
Yeah.
was horrific. And, just all the darkness and the fear and nearly dying and losing everything and all the stuff. But so like the good stuff that came out of that experience, I mean, it's why I'm doing what I'm doing today. Like it had to happen. But there are a few like really life-changing moments that changed who I was, because it changed my entire perspective. And one was the there model, that no matter how successful I got, it was never enough.
Yeah.
That it's the next thing. And again, that's that dissatisfaction model. So I realized that doesn't work. But what also happened is, kind of in when I couldn't get out of bed and I'm just laying there with my thoughts day in and day out, what I was left with when I thought that I might not be here much longer, the feelings that I felt, I mean, that were brutal, was so much regret
Yeah.
that, I mean, I would just cry and cry out of regret that, oh my God, I'm dying and I haven't even lived yet. I
Oh,
skipped over life. I, I was when I was on vacation, I was still working, My kids would beg for some of my attention. I'd be like, Mommy's just got to finish this one call and then I'll be like all the stuff. And I mean, that's what I was left with. I'm like, I messed it all up. Like all that business and money and success and ego is a bullshit game.
yeah. Yeah.
And it was that moment of, so coming out of that experience, like never again, I had it the reverse order. And so that's why I can teach this now, is just from my own anecdotal experience. And like I said, like the juice of life is in every moment. And if we just, we have to think and design futures, but not to live for the future, to really live for today. So that's again, so then when we have this vision and just with complete kind of description and clarity of what is a good life, and then we can enjoy the journey over time to create it, not that we have to do it in 5 minutes, because there's all this hustle, 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 do it right now, that makes us just that constant anxiety and
Yeah.
adrenaline and stuff, right? Like we have to do it tomorrow versus stretch it out.
Yeah.
It says
Yeah.
you have to do it in a certain period of time. And I call it the stair step, that we might have our kind of vision, but it's just like, what's the next stage? And let's just do that. When we get there, now we'll figure it out. And again, that iteration. So it's kind of in the stair step where versus being so long-term destination focused, if we can be short-term and really like that's one big problem to solve. So it's just much more enjoyable, like in these shorter horizons of time. And then the second piece to what is a good life then is how much does it cost to live it?
Yeah.
And it's quantifiable, but very few people have quantified how much is enough. And it seems like it should be an easy question to answer, but it's not.
No.
And ultimately, what I do is I help people establish that number. And once you know that number, it's very freeing. It's like freedom. Freedom comes from knowing your number, not necessarily in achieving the number. It's a
Yeah.
different kind.
Yeah.
So when we don't know that, really all we have is if I ask how much money is enough, the answer is like, I don't know, but more than I have now. And versus, in my good life, the cost of my good life would be different than the cost of your good life
Yeah.
because, mine might include whatever it includes. And so when we can have that, now we reverse engineer into how big or successful does my business need to be, top line and bottom line. But ultimately, bottom line, everything's reversed. So most people are going after like, oh, I need a 6-figure business, I need a 7-figure business, I need an 8-figure business. And that's that comparison game. If everybody's into 8 figures, it's like I have to have an 8-figure. And you're a failure now if you're not,
Yeah.
doing the next 8. But so it's all comparison, and these numbers are given to us of what we should be doing business wise. But when we can reverse engineer how much money's enough, in the sense of how much money do I need today to live my good life today, how much, and what's my gaps, there's knowing the gaps, like, okay, this is where I am today, this is where I'd like to be, so this is my gap of how much money I want to earn, if you will, from my business to be able to live this holistic life according to my terms. Totally quantifiable, as
Yep.
well as the work that we do today is, especially, we're younger, that's why I use that youthful energy and start this work sooner than later. But we're also using our work and energy today to take care of our 20-year older self or some future self tomorrow. So there's a future Steve and a future Krisstina
Yeah.
that doesn't want to work this hard, that doesn't want to be in the grind, that doesn't want to be in the grid, doesn't want, all the things. And so our current working selves are taking care of our future self also.
Yeah.
So we know how much money is enough to be financially free, and some future date means that the money, the cash flow from our assets covers the cost of our lifestyle. So our working in your business doesn't have to. That takes time to create that. And that's part of the journey, is building that future self business, which is a portfolio using our and then how much do we get to spend day to day, month to month, year to year to live this good life, know the gaps. Now we can quantify back into knowing how much that is in total. How much now, let's just say, I don't know, let's just say it's $250,000 a year. And that 250 is going to allow me to have all the money for taxes, have all my money that's going to allow me to invest the amount that I need to hit my future self number. It allows me to live the life I want to live month to month. And I get, some cash and some different things in the bucketing system that I teach. So let's say it's 250. So now it's like, okay, I know my number. That takes care of everything, my future self and my current self, my
Yep.
family and all the stuff that we want. And we've bridged the gaps. If we continue to do what we're doing, everything's going to work out just fine because it's
Yeah.
math. That's the great
Yep.
thing about money. It's math. So now I can go to my business and say, okay, business, you have to earn me $250,000 of profit. Okay, what's my business model? 250 profit. Okay, well, I only need $1 million business to hit 250
Yeah.
profit with a 25% profit margin. So my business strategy is $1 million, and $1 million top line is pretty easy. So with that's all I need to do. That's easy. So I'm going to keep it there because now all I've got to do is hit $1 million and kind of keep, run my numbers and know that and do that. That's going to fund all of my life, current self and future self, and all the 7 F words and stuff done. So when everybody's out there just killing themselves and trying all the stuff to get to the next zero and the next zero and the next zero, because
Yep.
if you're not a $1 billion business, like you're a total loser, don't have an ambition for one these days. I call it the B word.
Yep.
And for some that might be great, but for others, I can't tell you how many people work with. They're like, you mean this is all I need to do to hit all my numbers?
Yeah.
Oh my God, you just gave me my life back. And
Yeah.
so you're just out of the game. you're in a different game. You're in the wealth, love, life game, and you're out of the income, more is better game. And now your life is your life. And when it can be like that, again, you get lots of time, lots of
Yeah.
space to enjoy life because you're not using every waking moment trying to, scale, scale, scale. If I hear the word scale one more time, I think I'm going to throw up.
I love it. I mean, your enthusiasm and your energy for what you do. I mean, this was and is clearly your true calling because you just see it. Like, I mean, you're vibrant as hell anyway, but just like you just see it just like oozing off of you. For those of you that are going to hear this on the podcast, you got to go find this video on my YouTube because you will be like amazed. You'll be like, all right, yes, I'm in. I'm got to do this because you are absolutely I mean you're living the dream. You're doing exactly what you should by and I think you get that buoyancy from helping other people arrive at what you've arrived at and understanding the system and the process and that like you said, money is just math, right? At the end of the day, it's figuring out and doing backwards planning and understanding how to sort of re-engineer the life that you have and figure out how to reposition it so that you are living the life you really want. And you don't have to delay it. It doesn't have to be that deferred gratitude. It can be something you can do right now, which I love.
Yeah, when you're really in a when you understand money, we've worked on kind of the emotional charges that we bring from our upbringings and everything else.
Yeah.
And we're good with it and we do good with it and we are good with it. Money is such an important, vital piece of everything
Yep.
with this healthy relationship. But when you understand how it works and you have this really close, good relationship with it, it's truly magical. But
Yeah.
again, you can't chase it. It doesn't exist out there. It's not on a tree over there or down the street or around the corner or 12 months from now. It's just not like the and then again, this entrepreneur thing is so much about, that this is my wealth creation plan. It's really not, but we're kind of, again, this subconscious cultural notion of as long as I have this successful business, all my money's going to work out. And that's just the biggest trap of all time.
Yeah.
And, so I just really encourage people to learn money for what it really is and the beauty that it is, but it works when it's in alignment and it's meaningful and we uh, our work is very much in alignment with the money piece and understanding that money reflects really a big portion of who we are.
Yeah. Switching gears a little bit, I'd love my audience to kind of hear a little bit of this journey when I mean, you were, and certainly one of the top agents in Austin and elsewhere, right? But at the end of the day, you were an industry expert. People were coming to you for advice and guidance. You were enthusiastic and excited about being this game changer in the real estate space, and yet you made a fairly conscious decision to switch gears, and then now you've got this company called Wealthy. So I want you to explain, the meaning behind the name of your company, but it that was a pretty big risk, right? You went from what you knew and what you were really really good at, and to something that's completely different, and now you're I mean, you are, what the cool kids say, an influencer in this space. You are someone that is really committed to contributing to the world in a way that you've taken this knowledge and experience and you've adapted it into a form that really makes it accessible for virtually anybody. And that's not an easy thing to do. That's a huge transition. And it's not even like you're you know, it, you know, you were kind of hedging your bets. You were like all in. And I remember when we first talked about, it, you were kind of like, look, I'm kind of moving this direction. And I'm like, wow, like, cause you were so successful at what you were doing. But even knowing you back then, the level of happiness and just what is coming off of you right now, like I said, it really shows that you are on the path you were destined to be on all along. But that had to be a pretty scary time, right? Or did you just always know, hey, this is it. I'm flipping the switch and I'm going and I'm all in. So how did that happen?
Yeah, that's a big question, and that there's a lot of components to that. And yeah, so right before I got sick, I mean, I there was this defining moment where And it's just funny how universe works. I mean, it's kind of laughable because like I thought I knew so much and this whole thing's kind of orchestrated. But I was doing a keynote for the industry, the real estate industry, for the all the I was really known to like real estate and tech and some different things and kind of a disruptor and all the
Yeah.
labels I got. But I was on stage. There was the top leaders, the top technology leaders of the most famous companies today, the most noteworthy technology companies in real estate today that anybody could think of. And they're like the top leaders and like owners of real estate companies, the top technology. It was this group, and I was the keynote. And so I spoke at this event, and I wrote the material, I practiced it, and I was like a Broadway performance. I hit every single mark. And it's really weird though, because I don't know, about halfway in it, three-quarters of the way in it, I heard this click in my brain and it threw me off for a second. Like I didn't know what it was. And then I continued to go. But I was so rehearsed and so planned, but this, that thing, whatever happened. So then I just got my wits about me. It was like, a second. And then I went on, and I mean, I got a standing ovation. I mean, I just owned the room. I was already very well known in the space, but this was the top leaders of the top leaders.
It was a big deal.
A
Yeah.
big deal. I mean, there's not a bigger, more important place to be. Like if
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
going to do the talk of anything in the industry, this was the one. There wasn't any place to go from here. So I get off stage, people are clamoring for me, like, oh my God, Krisstina, can we hire you here? And we can hire you there. When you do this, when you sit on our board. And I'm just, and my ego is like over the top, right? But the irony of that is walking out of that room, in my head, I said, Krisstina, girlfriend, for a girl that started in a trailer home, you fucking made it. You've made it. You can name your price. You own it. Good job, girl. And I mean, I hit it. I hit
Yeah.
everything that I'd ever set out to do in the industry. And that's all I had was that industry. That's all I knew.
Yeah.
Within 48 hours, I couldn't get out of bed. That click in my brain was my brain breaking, basically. And I was out. So it's just so
Wow.
funny that whatever it was, that was my moment of, I never got to, I just never went on to that. So that's kind of the thing, is that the universe told me like, no, because had I gone onto that path, I'd still be doing what I am doing today. I'm pretty convinced of that.
Yeah.
But that was my break. So again, that time, spending kind of a year fighting for my life and spending so much time and everything started breaking down. I learned so many lessons with that. It's like, oh, Krisstina Atlas, I can't hold the universe, the world, the planet on my shoulders. I'll break and crumble. And when I did, everything crumbled down with me.
Yeah.
So it's one thing is that, oh, that didn't work really well, did it? Because I'm gone, everything else is gone that I spent so much time. So it's kind of one thing is that this isn't my job anymore to hold the world up. Two, what I also realized in that is that I'm just very entrepreneurial by nature, like we've talked about, and I can't help myself. I mean, I've created more things. I have more like business icons and businesses and LLCs and all the things. I mean, but
Yeah.
just that's how I create. I can't draw a stick figure, but we create your business. But all of that, I in all this time I'm sitting there, and all of that, what I learned was I was disconnected from purpose. I did the things I was good at, and I'd kind of built a business I hated. I just didn't realize I hated it at the time.
Mhm.
But it was nothing that was fulfilling. It was nothing, I want to change the industry because that's how I'm wired, but it's not like I felt like that was my purpose for being on this planet. And I was
Yeah.
disconnected from that. So again, sitting in so much time alone. And, once I got over, like the first half of my fight for my life was wanting to get back to who I was and where I was. And so fear of losing all that identity. So it's just all this fear and sadness,
Sure.
anxiety, and regret and all the things. Then the second half of that was finally like realizing like, oh, that was all the great big fat lesson. And what am I going to learn from that? And what am I going to do differently? That became the second. And that's when I started healing, when I started letting go, which was interesting. So the whole point of telling that long, convoluted story is that what I really realized is how important purpose is, I believe that we all really do have a purpose on this planet. And for me, I had to be taken out by the knees to have space and time to really connect with what that
Yeah.
was. And I didn't know what it was at the time, but what I knew what it wasn't was.
Yeah.
And it wasn't what I was doing. So it's really coming from that to kind of a long-winded answer to your question was reconnecting to a whole different reason for being here and kind of the same things. What's come out of that is what is a good life? How much does it cost to live it? Getting out of the rat race, getting out of the chase, all the things, because that's what was presented to me is there's no happiness there.
I
There's no
love it.
fulfillment and joy and contentment. We think one day we'll be contented, but we won't. It's all in the things we've kind of just discussed and then some. So again, so that's part one to answer your question. Part two is when I came out of that, I sold everything. I mean, I sold what I could, some of it had some value, but otherwise I knew if I didn't just light a torch to it, it was just going back. It's maybe, I don't know if you're an alcoholic and you have the one drink, or if you're a
Yeah.
smoker, you quit smoking and you have the one cigarette. You just know, you think you can have one drink or one cigarette and then you're right back in it.
Yeah.
I don't, none of those for me, but I had this idea that if I just go a little bit back into it, thinking I can just do it the certain way, I'm going to be 100% back in. So I basically just torched it and I just
You
walked,
burn the boat moment,
burned the
right?
boats.
Yeah.
I totally burned the boats and just walked away with it. And I didn't know what I was going to do next. I just knew it wasn't that. And I had to burn the boats. And then the kind of the final piece to this, what I teach now is there's a certain faith piece. It's one of the 7 F words. And it's like we do what we can do with our intentions and our desires and our passions and our expression and our gifts and the different things. But then there's a piece of just letting go and letting the magic happen and
Yeah.
not holding on tight. Like, and that's getting out of fear and really moving to things are working on my behalf. Life is good.
Yeah.
I'm doing good work. I'm a good person. I'm all these different things. And so it's just kind of that faith and letting go. And so coming out of that experience, and kind of this is the final piece of the story, uh, is that I sat down to write a blog article because back in the day I was a big blogger.
Yeah.
And I kind of built my business on blogging when all the social media, like Twitter first came out and Facebook first came out and blogging first came out. I was kind of early. We
Yeah.
were, many of us were, but I was early to that. So I was a pretty well known blogger, but I never had an ambition to write a book. I didn't think I could write a book. I'm not a good writer. I just write because why not? And people read some of my blogs. But I sat down to write a blog article, and I was just sitting down to write it to say, for again, I had millions of followers, and I was the icon in the industry. By the end of this, nobody checked on me anymore. I mean, they went on to the next. So talk about it like coming to terms with your ego.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
really taught me how quickly I was replaceable. I thought I was important and people needed me, but they all went on and took care of themselves. I'm like, I mean, I was just a blip on the screen. So that was really good for me to realize, like, oh yeah, I'm not as important as I thought I was. Anyway, so I was sitting down. I thought, maybe if there's 5 people that are still might follow my blog, I'm going to just write a blog article to share a little bit of where I'd been kind of the last 2 years. And so next thing I know, I just started writing and writing and writing and writing. 30 days straight, I'd wake up inspired to start writing. I'd sit at my desk all day. I'd eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner at my computer. 31 days, actually. I took one day off and it was 31 days. And I kind of read everything I wrote and I wrote a book without trying to write a book.
Yeah.
But what was so surprising about that, Steve, is it was this book about money. And I thought, where the hell did that come from?
Yeah.
Why did I just write a book about money? Because I didn't write it. I was kind of the muse for this. And when I just read it, and it really became this book about money and life and some of the things we've talked about is kind of this, what was inside me that I didn't even know was inside me. So prior to gotten sick, if there would have been, a fortune teller that had a crystal ball with 100% accuracy of anyone she ever talked to that said, Krisstina, you're going to be, you're not going to be in the real estate industry whatsoever. You're going to be in the money industry. You're going to be teaching and coaching people on how to build wealth. You're going to have a whole different way of teaching it. You're going to change people's lives from the inside out, all in this money space. Nothing to do with real estate. In fact, real estate's going to have been burned to the ground. I'd have been like that. You've had 100% accuracy before this, but that is 100% no way ever going to be the case.
Yeah.
Not a
Yeah.
chance that I will be your one wrong person. So that's how surprising it was for me, is that, so coming out of that, I just realized like, oh, all of that life journey and all the different pieces, and especially being sick, is what this book came out of me. And so the faith piece and all that was just really trusting, in this grand entrepreneurial, make things happen, all this stuff. I just let go. I'm like, all right, I'm supposed to teach this money thing. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have a business. I don't have a brand. Who am I? I mean, total imposter syndrome. Like, who am I to be teaching this? And what do I know? And how do I turn this into a business? And I just went with it.
You
And,
did it.
and at the end of the day, I mean, I just think, oh my God, how lucky am I? Like every day, I love my work. I love my life first, but I love my work that funds my life. And just to see that my purpose, I know now, nobody can convince me that this isn't my purpose of being on the planet, is to help people transcend and have these money transformations and really understand money and create wealth for themselves so that they can live a good life with lots of healthy relationships.
I love it.
A lot of love,
Yeah.
Um, and and yeah, there is no, in the real estate industry, as good as I was and all the things, it wasn't changing people's lives in the way that I know I'm meant to do, is inspire
Yep.
and change people's lives that I get to do now. And that's what motivates me.
So the name of the company is Wealthy. So explain that really quickly, because it's two different spellings, but I know sort of the story behind it, but tell everybody else a little bit about it.
Well, it's funny, I got into coming out of that experience too. I got into a meditation practice. And my meditation practice is really important to me. And I didn't have time for meditation before. I'm like, my brain doesn't work that way. Who has time for meditation? There's a lot of work to do, a lot of productivity to happen, all the things. So now, my meditation practice is really sacred. But kind of at the beginning of that, what happens when I have meditation sometimes is things just like land in my head. It's like a dream when you wake up and you want to write something down. So I kid you not, all of a sudden I was in a meditation and I saw these two words side by side in my head. And it happened like 3 times, and I just saw them. I'm like, "What is that?" And again,
Yeah.
this is probably about a year and a half into me trying to figure out what this new thing, how do I create a business out of this? But what I thought about it and realized is like, "Oh, this brand is the message that I'm teaching."
Yeah.
And so I'm teaching wealth, which is WEALTH. Like, what is wealth? How is it
Yep.
different in income? How much money is enough? How does some money matter? Like all the money pieces. But again, it's to understand it's not wealth for wealth's sake. It's not wealth for being rich sake. It's not wealth for just the sake of more money. More money. If you have more money on a deserted island,
Doesn't do you any good.
doesn't do
Yeah.
you any good. Like, it's not about the money, it's about life. And life is about the quality of your relationships and how good you feel.
Yep.
So that's the wealth,
Yeah.
WELLTH. So it's really about wealth. So when life is about living a well life, a life well lived, that's about wellness in all categories: physical wellness, emotional wellness, spiritual wellness, relational wellness, all the things. When we're motivated to like feel well, to be well, to live well, to give well, and it's about well, then it's like the money piece is just the money to underwrite the cost of living. If you look the etymology of the word wealth, the WEALTH, it actually comes from WELL,
Mm-hmm.
which is physical wellness. So again, like that just landed, and I went up and I started looking at these words and everything, the etymology. I'm like, oh my God, who knew? So that's it. It's just the reminders, the brand
I love it.
that get good at money to underwrite the cost of living a life well lived.
So tell everybody just real quick, and we're going to put this in the show notes, just how they learn more about all that you're doing. So give them the web address.
So probably if it's, I'm assuming it's mostly, we crazy entrepreneurs that are listening to this. So what I love to do is I love all entrepreneurs to take this quiz that I created.
Okay.
And the quiz is called the 10 financial questions every entrepreneur has to answer, but can't. So these 10 financial questions, I believe, are paramount to our financial success as entrepreneurs. So by taking the quiz to see and get a grade to
Yeah.
see how many of these answers we know. And, if it's less than 90%,
Yeah.
80% at the lowest, then I would hope that there's something that goes off in our head says there's more to the money side of the equation than just kind of this entrepreneur thing that I'm in, that maybe I need to go try to find out what these answers are. Because again, these answers are what our entrepreneurial journey is all about, is being able to answer and have an answer to these questions.
I love it. And
And
they can
that's
find
yeah.
that quiz on your website?
No, it's at wisemoneymethod.com forward
Okay.
slash quiz.
Oh, awesome.
Wisemoneymethod.com forward slash quiz.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, and we'll definitely put that in the show notes as well. So you've been so gracious with your time. I know you're super busy, but I just had a few Ripple specific questions to
All
ask
right.
you if you're really, like we'll do it as a rapid fire if you're okay with that. But I think I have an inclination of the answer for this, but let's see. Where do you find your inspiration today?
Oh, universe. I mean, just, universe, but I'd have to say the most important practice, I think something that I'm consistent with, it's living in extreme gratitude.
Yeah.
Is even when I'm feeling my worst, it's looking for something to be grateful for. And it's so easy when it's really that way. So the inspiration is just truly comes from gratitude of having this chance to live this life, make this change, do this work, have these friends, my children, this healthy body now after it being not healthy. And every day just to wake up and like, rock on, we get another day to live fully, and just
I
not to
love
make
it.
every day about the grind of work. Like seriously, it's not, it's the payoff isn't what we think it is.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. What's the best thing a client or a colleague or a family member or friend could hear them say about you?
Last night, so I have a money school and I take people through, it's kind of a semester learn money. And then we graduate. So yesterday we had our last class as graduation. And what we do in the graduation, it's on Zoom. So, people from around the country are on that call. And so we graduated everybody. So on graduation, we had people say like, what was their biggest transformation moment or the biggest aha or the biggest change? And so, with everybody on there, Steve, I mean, I can get teary eyed right now. I mean, it is right here in my heart. I'm just sitting there listening to one person after another say, thank you, Krisstina. This work changed my life. Thank you, Krisstina. My life is better. Thank you, Krisstina. I'm so glad that I did this.
I love
I mean, every single one, and I wasn't asking for that. I was just trying to say, hey, like, tell me like an aha moment.
it.
So, I mean, it that's the thing, is that anything that says you've positively impacted my life one way or another,
Yeah,
mm,
that's
that,
awesome.
that brings me so much joy.
Yeah, and knowing you as I do, I know that that's the ultimate payoff for you, right? It's so great to have someone, you change lives with the work that you're doing. I mean, you like you said before, maybe it was a little different in terms of how you changed their perspective when you were in the real estate space, but today you're definitely, I mean, you are completely shifting everyone's perspective and in their approach, and so that's got to be the ultimate reward. Hearing
Mhm.
those words for sure. What would you say is the best piece of advice you received growing up that you still use today?
Oh, just forge your own path. Just question everything
Hmm.
and make decisions, and something just even for my children too, that I really wanted to raise them in a way that they could think for themselves.
Yeah.
Have your own failures, make your own mistakes, fall down, get back up, but think for yourselves, come up with your own interpretations, ask questions, challenge the status quo, and just see what truth is there, maybe what truth isn't there. So I think that, that was always given to me, is like, and feeling like permission to just, you know,
Get
go
out there
full
and get
out.
messy,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
must be right. Yep.
Good or bad, doesn't matter, but
Right.
you're going to learn and grow from the experience. That's awesome. Last question, and it's probably my favorite one to ask because it's always interesting to see how people respond to it. But what does the ripple effect mean to you?
For me, ripple is like, it's cause effect. So every cause has an effect. And when we're living in drift, or we're unconscious, when we're not in alignment, when we're living out of integrity, when we're kind of whatever, we're not connected to the ripple effect of that. If we just watch every behavior, every thought and behavior and action has a ripple effect, a cause effect consequence.
Yep.
And then we can see how we can just like stray off to
Yeah.
all these different places and wind up how we got there. So that's the ripple effect. Is like, you put that first stone and that ripple and that ripple. And the more we can be conscious of every little stone that we, toss in the water, then, and we know that it's intentional, then you can even sit back and remember, like ripple, like when you do it and you see the ripples just go and you get chill
Yep.
bumps because you see
Yeah.
how it works. We can create that same sort of chill bump every single day by being conscious of, of our thoughts, feelings, and choices.
I love it. I love it. Krisstina, thank you so much for being a part of this. This is there's just so many nuggets that you gave to us. I know that this is going to be one of those episodes that's just going to go like gangbusters because people are going to so appreciate everything that you shared. I mean, you are a consummate rippler and everything that you're doing through your work, but also through your friendship and your support all these years. You are definitely one of my heroes in business. I am so proud to know you and call you a friend. And so thrilled and excited that you are on this path and in doing the kind of work that you're doing because you're amazing. So thanks for sharing your great knowledge and experience and inspiring us to want to do more and to look at some of these really important things as entrepreneurs and as individuals, right? Are we living the life and doing the kinds of things that we really want to be doing? And if not, then offering up opportunities for us to really do something about it. So appreciate you being a part of this.
Well, my pleasure, and right back at you. And again, you've been a ripple effect in my life and the work that you've done, and always been an inspiration. I've always just loved your smile and optimism and gratitude. And I know I'm kind of preaching to the choir here. So thank you for just inviting me. And it's so good to see you after this time. And again, like the power of relationships, like I
Yeah.
adore you. And like the second you say, when you do this, like, hell yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. I mean, and we haven't seen each other in person. Obviously, COVID really screws up a lot of things, right? It's hard to remember before COVID because it just seems to be the nightmare that in some instances doesn't end. But we have got to get together and have another we got to get together and do another lunch or something because I missed you and owe you a hug. So I'm anxious to do that.
All right. Well, you tell me when.
We'll
Thank
get
you
it
so much.
scheduled. Awesome. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. And guys, thanks so much for joining us for another episode of the Ripple Effect podcast. I'll be back again with another episode very soon. And be sure to check out Wealthy. Share that one link one more time before we jump off.
wisemoneymethod.com/quiz.
Forward slash quiz, and then wealthy spelled WealthThy.com is where you can learn more about Krisstina and all the great work that she's doing and get on your newsletter as well. So be sure to check that out. We'll put that note in the show notes. And again, you guys take care and we'll be back again with another episode. Until then, ripple on.